The biggest mistake I made in my business was not hiring a professional to help me with my money. Not just my taxes, but the actual plan I had for my business. I was completely lost on how to handle taxes, what to do with profit, and how to maintain my income. I had to find a better way. That's when I found Core Financial. Core Financial is a team of tax professionals that actually care about building real relationships with their clients. They run my books, keep me up to date with my finances, and make sure I'm taking full advantage of all of my tax benefits. Are you struggling with your finances? Look no further. Core Financial is a brand that is nationwide that can help you with your business. Both Nick and I are huge fans of Core, and they can help you too. Check out howtofilmweddings.com/core to schedule a consultation today. Core Financial, real relationships, no surprises.
It seems like there are new cameras and equipment coming out all of the time. It gets increasingly confusing and the FOMO is real. John and I have been preaching for years that the best way to try out new gear is to rent before you buy. There is only one place that we recommend when it comes to renting, and that is our friends over at Lens Rentals. Lens Rentals is the premier source for renting not only camera equipment, but lenses, drones, projectors, and more. Do you have a big project coming up and you really need to wow your couple? Wanting to test out the newest camera before you drop thousands on it? You need Lens Rentals. My favorite thing is that if I love something I rent, I can keep it. They apply a portion of the rental fee to the purchase price, and within a few simple clicks, the gear is mine. So head over to howtofilmweddings.com/lensrentals and use promo code HTFW15 at checkout for 15% off of your order. Lens Rentals, the only place we recommend renting.
Hello and welcome to How to Film Weddings. My name is John Bunn, and today I'm joined by Nick Miller as always. It's a good day. It's a good week. We've been doing lots of recordings today, lots of Zoom sessions. So here I am, still on Zoom today with Nick. It's a new week. We're excited. I don't know what else to say. How are you, Nick? What the heck's on your desk back there?
Well, if you're watching on the YouTube, John and I made some upgrades and changes, and over here to my left in the corner, you'll see a brand new FX3 and a gently used A7S III Sony. So,
and Nick, were those written out of your personal check, or was it a business write-off? Give me
those
some.
were a business expense. Those were a business expense, and I knew that it now was a good time to make those business expenses because I have an accountant, a professional that looks over my books and lets me know if now is a good time or not to buy that. And so in that vein, in that note, we are going to have a conversation with our friend Jeremy Doorn over at Core Financial. They're accountants. They do financial planning, all sorts of stuff. So, John, I say we just go ahead and jump on over to the episode and get to hanging out with Jeremy.
I say that we should do that as well.
Jeremy, it is so great to have you on the podcast again. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm doing really well. And part of the reason that I'm doing well is because I have a good tax professional working on my team to help me. We had a meeting earlier this year, and you're like, "Hey, Nick, you owe a lot of money," which stinks, but it was in August, so I could kind of plan for those kind of things. So it's good to have someone like you on my side.
It's not really a question. I don't know where he's supposed to go with that, but
I don't know. I just wanted him to agree. Say, yes, I am awesome.
I am
that was
awesome,
the point of that.
And it's great having good clients like you too, Nick, and John for that matter.
Well, for those of you that don't know Jeremy, why don't you say who you are in a non-geeky accountant type way, but like more of a you're talking to wedding filmmakers kind of way.
Wow, that's on the spot right there. So I'm Jeremy Doorn. I work for Core. I'm a relationship manager. So I don't do the accounting speak very well. We help small businesses really get a hold of their financial situation as far as taxes, tax planning. We do retirement planning, investment, stuff like that, just to make sure that you know what's going on in your business in a timely fashion on a monthly basis. And then like Nick had kind of alluded to, we do a lot of tax planning so that we're minimizing those taxes. It's never fun to pay a lot in tax, but if you're paying a lot in tax, it means that you're making a lot of money. So it's all about planning for what that's actually going to look like, so you don't go waste it all and then owe the government later, because they're a terrible creditor, very expensive. So, and it's never fun being a tax surprise, right?
Yeah, and when I found Jeremy, I wouldn't say I was, well, how would you put how organized I was? Jeremy, what situation would you say I was in, like scale of 1 to 10, 10 being good, 1 being bad? Where was I at when we met?
Whew,
negative numbers?
Negative numbers. No, as far as organized goes, as far as bookkeeping, accounting, organized goes, I would say probably a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some stuff.
That's generous.
You didn't really know what was going on. I think that's the thing that a lot of filmmakers, wedding guys, all these small businesses start out. They start out small. As you get bigger, things become not more complicated. But if you're going to own a business, you've got to know a little bit about taxes. You don't have to be a tax professional like me, but you've got to understand what the numbers tell you, what taxes mean, what kind of things go on within owning a business, right? If you want to own a business, you got to do the whole package. And so it's really helping people understand that stuff, not become professionals. That's my job, but just so they know. And I think you knew the wedding industry very well, and you were on your way to becoming very successful. But as far as the financials, as far as accounting and any of that stuff, yeah, you just really had no idea.
We talk a lot about hope not being a strategy, and I think that was pretty much my strategy when it came to, and most wedding professionals, small business owners, it's like the strategy is like, taxes suck. I'm going to save maybe a little bit of my money back, but there's always this like lingering skeleton in the closet like that you're going to deal with. And I would always do the whole thing where it was like, I would reconcile my books after the year was over and like organize where I spent all my money. And like, I was always chasing, my tail, it seems, and was always, I'm this much behind on taxes and I need to catch up. And so over the last 5-6 years of you working with me, we've gotten everything buttoned up in order, and we go into the year with a plan, knowing this is what we're projecting. This is when we could, like when you should make payments. And just having somebody that's a pro, just like we talk about with wedding filmmakers, like hiring a pro to film the wedding. Yes, you could hire a college kid friend to film the wedding, but you're probably going to get that kind of quality. And that's, my brother who has a master's in business was helping me with run the things, and he did a great job for somebody that's not in taxes. And so, we wanted to stress at this time of the year, we're coming up towards the end of the year, how important it is to get your ducks in a row for 2022, because next year is going to be BANANAS, Nick. It's going to be bananas. So
it is going to be bananas. And so we want to, as we're forward thinking, we're thinking about next year and just planning taxes and all that kind of stuff. So Jeremy, I want to kind of start off and ask you this question. What are, in your opinion, as we're ending December, moving into the new year, what are, a couple of things or something that people, when it comes to the taxes, that they should really be honing in on, or they should ask their professional about, or just as kind of we flip over into that new year? What are a few things that people should look into?
Yeah, I think when we come to the year end, if you're looking at minimizing your taxes, mostly because that's what people are wanting to do, right? Not pay as much in tax. And so it's really coming up with ways of minimizing it if you need to, right? So depending on how the year goes or how you see 22 going, you've got cameras there in the back that I think you just got today, right? Those Sony cameras. So like buying that kind of equipment, if you haven't bought it yet and you're looking in December to maybe getting it, and if you've done tax projections or you've worked with your tax professional as far as what your tax liability looks like, that sort of thing. And maybe this year's not going to be as good as next year. So if you don't need the camera right now in December, then maybe pushing that expense into next year, because next year's going to be a bigger year. Tax bracket's going to be more everything else. So having that deduction next year might be more beneficial. Same with moving stuff back. Like if you needed cameras and you could use the tax deduction now, look, I was going to buy a camera in January, or I'm going to have a retreat in January. Maybe doing some of that stuff, pushing those expenses into December can help you out for this current year. You can also prepay expenses. I think the IRS allows you up to, expenses that you're going to have for the next 12 months. If you can prepay them in December, then you can get that full write-off in December. So pushing those expenses. So it's all about what's going to happen. Like, what's going to happen next year? Is it going to be more? Do we need to save stuff for next year? Or do we need to push that into this year?
And that's where we recommend really having somebody in your corner that is looking at those things. Like I met with you actually yesterday to go through my projections, and you saying, hey, this is, with what we can project with the last month and a half of the year accounted for, you're going to owe this much more with everything you've already paid in. And I was able to ask the question. It's like, hey, should I be buying a few more things in December? And you were like, next year's already looking better. You might want to wait till January to buy these things, or until next year, so you can have that write-off then. So it's different for everybody, but where I wanted to get at for sure by having you on is we need professional help when it comes to this, even at a small level. So I guess my question to you would be, we have a lot of people that are really just getting going. What baby steps would you have them, they're in their first year, they may have done a few weddings for some friends, they're really getting going. Do they need to mess with this now? And if so, what steps should they really be looking at to get themselves I don't know if they need to hire someone full-time, hire someone like you, or where would you point them?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially starting out at the beginning, it might not be cost effective. It just depends on how fast you're going to grow. So I don't think there's any certain revenue triggers, because I have some super small ones. I've got some, super bigger clients. But I think the most important part is getting some sort of process into place. First, I know everybody does it when they start their business. They run everything through their personal account, and that's a nightmare for you at the end of the year. It's a nightmare for your accountant at the end of the year, right? Because pulling stuff out of your personal account, what's business, what's personal, you're going to miss something, I promise you. There's no reason, if you're going to have a business and it's going to be your business, go get a business bank account. That's number one, right? Get an LLC or whatever you want to do legally as far as separating it as an entity, and then get an EIN, which you have to get a bank account, and then start the process of reconciling that bank account every month. And that usually leads people to QuickBooks Online. You can usually do that pretty easily by yourself. It'll bank feed in there. And then just reconciling it every month, making sure that everything's accounted for. Because as nice as the bank feeds are, things do get missed, or they get double counted because of this, that, and the other thing. So it's always reconciling. People don't ever think about reconciling, but it's super important to know that everything that's gone through that bank is being accounted for. And then as you get further on, you're going to realize that doing that stuff might not take a lot of time now, because you're only shooting 5 or 7 weddings a year or whatever. But you start getting up to 15, 20 weddings a year, you're not going to want to mess with doing that. So outsourcing that, and then getting a financial partner to help you do some of the planning. I mean, when you've got 3 or 4 or 5 weddings that you're shooting for friends, there's probably not a whole lot of planning there, minus knowing that there's probably going to be some tax there, just because now you're self-employed, which is typically different for people when they come out of the W-2 world. But you're just going to get to a point where it's better for you to hire somebody like me, because then that gives you the freedom to go do what you do best, which is shoot weddings and be creative and do what you guys do, right? Rather than sit behind there and do QuickBooks and try to guess what your tax liability is going to be, or go out and try to, become a tax guru or something. There's no reason not to hire somebody like me.
Yeah. I remember I think on average, whenever I was in charge of my books, I would do it twice a year. Get everything squared. It's halfway through the year. Oh, it's July. I haven't done this yet. I better do it. So then I do 6 months at a time. And then I would scramble at the end of December to figure out, oh, should I buy more, or, whatever. And it was a job that I hated. And because I hated doing it, it always got pushed to the back burner, and I never did it because I hated it. And that was one of the things, as soon as I figured out the cost, what it would cost me to do it, even though it was a monthly fee each month, it was well worth it so that I wouldn't have to do it. I think it's not uncommon for a bookkeeper, tax professional to be one of the first hires that small businesses make, just because it's very complex in what there is to do, and most people don't know the rules. And it's also something that most people don't like to do, right? Like, you're only a numbers person if you're a numbers person, right? So,
first, you don't like to do it. It takes you more time than it probably needs to take. And
sure,
if you pay me to do it, it's not going to take me any time at all. And you're getting a tax professional and somebody you can bounce questions off of. I had a client forever doing his own bookkeeping, blah, blah, blah. Well, I always wanted to do tax projections for him. And so I would bug him to try to get his numbers. And he'd give them to me like after 3 weeks of bugging him, he'd give them to me. I'd turn around and do a tax projection in like 30 minutes. And I'd be like, hey, you want to go over this? And he'd be like, seriously, it just took me 3 weeks to get you those numbers, and it took you 30 minutes to get me the tax projection. And I'm like, that's why you need to let me just do the bookkeeping for you, because you don't need to be doing that. You need to be doing what you do best, not this, right? Let me do me and you do you. For sure.
I think like when I found you through a friend here in town, I was in a position where I was working with somebody, but they weren't super, I had worked with my brother, and then I'd hired somebody that was like once a year, kind of just to reconcile things. And it's too late in that point of it's already done when I would be going and being like, okay, can you get this all in order and just tell me how much I owe, or am I going to get money back? And it was just always this lingering, I have no idea. I might owe $50,000. I might get paid $50,000 back. I have no idea. I'm completely, it's all organized. I know how much I'm spending on stuff, but I don't have anybody in my corner, and just having somebody. So, a lot of people that are just get going, it's definitely huge, like you said, to have a bank account that's separate. Mm-hmm. I used to run everything through one account, and then line by line through my bank statements, be like, what was that thing in February that says Barnes & Noble? Was that a book for business, or was that a gift because it was someone's birthday? I can't remember. I didn't save the receipt. It's like this lingering thing that's always just, I don't know. I'm not going to count that because I don't want to get audited or whatever. It's like, mm-hmm. And then finding you, and then you looking at everything, putting it together and getting it organized for me. What that has done for me is just the same safety that you get when you're hiring a pro wedding video, should be for your couples. Were like, oh, okay, somebody that's been there before, somebody that's, knows how to help me. And you've done things for me different in every year based on the Trump tax code or Biden's tax codes or different. It's like, hey, just so you know, this credit is being distributed over the whole year. So you have to do this differently now, or you're just in that world. You're thinking about it. And that has been a huge benefit. One year it was like, hey, you need to file married filing separately or whatever, this year. That's going to save you $14,000. And I'm like, oh, cool. That just paid for more than how much I paid for you for the whole year times 2, or times 3 or whatever. And so there's those little things that we just don't see because we're not in that world all the time. And so whether it's core financial that you use or somebody else, have somebody in place. And if you're smaller, work into maybe somebody that looks at your books once a quarter or once every 6 months, and just knowing that, and don't wait till now, December, to be like, okay, what should I do about my taxes this year? So, Nick, I know some people asked some questions in our mastermind group, and you have that list. I see it kind of, but I'll let you select one of them. We asked the question yesterday, just we're going to have Jeremy on. There's a few questions from some of the mastermind students. So why don't you snag one of those?
Yeah, one that I want to start with, and this is definitely going to be something for people that have been in business for a little bit of time and actually making, kind of a lot of money or a living off of it, is at what point should a person move from an LLC to an S-corp? What do you recommend there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, as your business gets bigger, there are certain ways to save on taxes. And this whole LLC S-corp, I've always said when your business is about $40,000 or $50,000 in net profit. So not the sales, but all of the profit after your expenses, is a good time to start looking at that. Because before then, it really doesn't make any sense, because making an S-corp election, you have to put yourself on salary, so you've got to take on payroll. There's a bunch of different costs that are associated with making that S-corp election. And so to save the taxes to make up for those expenses, it doesn't really happen until you get to about 40 or 50. So, I mean, if you're well over 40 or 50, it's probably time to start looking at that for sure. But up to that point, it doesn't really make any sense. You actually work backwards if you make that election a little early.
Yeah,
I think go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I remember, I think 2020 was the first year that we were in S-corp. That was last tax season, and I remember having a conversation with you last year when we were doing our planning, and you said, "Hey, I just want to show you what your taxes would be if you didn't elect as an S-corp." And it ended up saving me something like $20,000 throughout the year, something crazy that I was like, holy cow, in just taxes, all of that stuff, because I did. Now, yes, there was payroll and all that kind of stuff. So, it wasn't exactly 20, but yeah, without having someone that knows what they're doing, like, I would have never thought of that or figured that out. So,
well, and having that timely thing, like John mentioned earlier, you take all your stuff to your tax guy after the year's already done. Well, you can't plan and buy equipment or not buy equipment or do any of that planning after the year's already done. You're just looking at a scoreboard at that point, right? So it's already done. There's nothing you can do about it. So that's the whole point, is having some sort of timely financial information to make some better decisions on.
One question I have is, like, I think there's some myths around the whole subject of taxes and being overwhelming and too much or whatever. What advice would you give to somebody that's feeling overwhelmed with tax stuff, with their business, the projections that is in their first few years of business, that are just feeling kind of stuck? Like, what advice would you give them?
Oh, man. I think if you're working with if you're working on your own, it can be fairly daunting. I mean, the tax code's not a whole lot of fun. It's very confusing and very complex, as we all know. But if you have somebody on your side that's really working with you, it doesn't have to be, especially for small business, it doesn't have to be all that complicated. So it's just a matter of leaning into it and working with somebody. And I know from working with a lot of the wedding videographers out there, that this isn't their space. You guys aren't about numbers. It's not really about that. So really finding somebody that's not going to, if somebody's talking that accountants speak to you, you might look somewhere else, right? Because a lot of times you go to your accountant and he talks like he's talking Japanese to you. And that's really, I think that's what, here at Core, we don't have a whole lot of people that do that. Like, it's not about having these great accounting conversations. It's really just about trying to help you. So whatever way I can better help you, and not bog you down too much with the numbers, because you guys don't like numbers. Like, it's not, and that's fine. Like, that's what it is. But it's just really about finding the right person to have those conversations with, so you don't get too, but it doesn't have to be very scary.
Mm-hmm. Nick, you want to snag another question, or you want me to snag one?
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones.
There are a lot of good ones. We'll do one more, and then we'll head into break. But how do you determine if someone is a freelance 1099 worker or an actual W-4 employee?
Wow. Yeah, that's a loaded question. That's nice. We actually have on our website, I wish Ryan Coral was listening, because I'm going to say it, www.coregroupus.com. I think it's on our website. I don't know. We have a contractors checklist that we've come up with, and it really comes down to control, right? So who's controlling who does the work, who's controlling their hours, who's controlling, if they're using their own cameras or they're using your cameras. The more control you have over somebody, the more likely they are an employee, right? The less control you have over them, they're going to be a contractor. So I mean, it's just like when you're building a house, right? You have a drywall contractor that comes in. You don't go tell that guy how to do drywall. This guy knows drywall, right? He's going to go in, he's going to do the drywall how he sees fit, and he's going to use all of his own equipment, and he's obviously a contractor. In y'all's business, it gets a little gray. I think it can get fairly gray there. But I've always told people, if it's gray and you want someone to be, or they're acting more like a contractor, then make it a contract relationship, right? So a contractor is going to bill you for their time, for whatever. So if you are paying them as a contractor and that's how you feel the relationship is, make sure that it looks that way, right? Mm-hmm. So, and we have a checklist on the website that you can go to and kind of use if you need some help there, for sure.
Yeah. Something I heard a while ago is one of the big differences between like a freelancer, a contractor versus an actual employee. You're talking about control has to do with like time. Like if you say you have to show up at 9 and you work until 5, that's more of an employee relationship than it would be of, you need to work 8 hours this week, you choose them. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
it's like the name says, freelancer, right? Like that person has the freedom to get it done how they see fit. And typically they have some sort of profit motive. So like they could lose money if you pay somebody $3,000 and they've got $4,000 worth of expenses, they could have a business that's losing money. But that's on them, not necessarily on you. So that's where, if you're laying down a schedule and they have to be here from 9 to 5 and blah, 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 that's probably more of an employee relationship for sure.
Yeah.
But
is that
check with your tax professional before.
Yes.
This is good tax
I'm not
advice.
I'm not giving you tax advice for sure.
Disclaimer. Nick, you were going to say something. Sorry.
I don't know what I was going to say, but I think this is a good time for us to just hop to break. So we'll go to break and we'll come back with Jeremy from Core right after this.
Hi, it's Michael from Wedditor. We want to thank everyone for the incredible support we've received since sponsoring How to Film Weddings. Yes, we've had some growing pains, but we've had far more wins. And we're doing something that's never been done. We're a remote team of over 50 editors in 10 countries. I often joke that we're as much a logistics company as we are a creative company. Right now, demand is off the charts. And we don't just say yes to everyone and scramble to figure it out. That's why we're asking you to help us help more of you. In short, we're looking for more talented Wedditors. Part-time or full-time, work from where you want, when you want, as long as you hit deadlines and deliver quality. It's a chance to get paid while growing as an editor. Our project managers work with you, explaining why something feels right or doesn't, because there's always a reason. If you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. Go to wedditor.com/editor and fill out our form.
Finding the perfect song for your wedding film can be so frustrating. We spend countless hours searching for the perfect song. When it comes to licensing music, Nick and I both love MusicBed. Not only do they have the best music, but their website makes it so easy to find the perfect song and to find it fast. We have both been using the MusicBed's wedding subscription for years and cannot recommend it enough. Not only are they adding new music from incredible musicians like Chapters, The Light, The Heat, and Tony Anderson all the time, they've made it incredibly easy to search their library for mood, genre, instrumentation, and even key. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed and use promo code HTFW for a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription. howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed.
All right, we are back from break with Jeremy from Core, and we're going to go ahead and jump into our Wedditor question of the day. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing. And here's another one of our mastermind students asked this question. What's the best way to handle taxes when you do destination weddings and weddings in other states?
Oh, yeah. So, technically, I mean, if we're going to be, you need to consult with your tax professional for sure. But, I mean, technically, if you are in a destination wedding and you're shooting it there, the state would probably want you to pay taxes in that state for sure. But tracking that for a small business is probably not very feasible because none of us are Amazon and have the money or resources to do that, nor do we want to do that. So it can be kind of tricky because then you probably go back home and you probably edit it and everything else. So it's probably not as gray. I mean, it's fairly gray, but again, if you were doing most of your weddings in Colorado and you lived in Oklahoma or something, but you did mostly Colorado weddings, I'd probably just file like a Colorado tax return for you. But if you're in Oklahoma and you do a wedding here or a wedding there, I mean, if you go do a wedding in Colorado and you're supposed to report that income in Colorado, let Colorado come ask for that money. They're not really gonna know when you're super small. It's probably terrible tax advice, but technically you would probably need to report it where the income's earned. So I mean, if you're earning it in Colorado, you got to report it in Colorado. But again, get with your tax professional to determine what your actual, they call it nexus, where you have nexus as far as where your income's generated, because that's where you're supposed to pay the tax. So it can get pretty complicated if you go into a lot of different states. It can get complicated. I like to keep stuff simple.
Yeah. And yes, technically you're supposed to check with your tax pro. And it's like, if you're charging $5,000 for a wedding, maybe $4,000 of the cost is the edit and $1,000 is the shoot. And you need to spread that out. And so definitely a good question. Definitely check with your tax pro on that. If you're going to have one or two weddings out of state, it's even the state of Colorado, just don't worry about it. Okay. But
they're never going to know about it, right? Unless you report it to them, they would never know about it. So, I mean, unless the state of Colorado somehow came in and audited you, which I don't know why they would be auditing you since you're not a resident. It would be really, and that's where the states would love to capture that income. There's just not really a good way to make that happen, because you talk about interstate commerce with sales tax and everything else. It gets very convoluted that's why Amazon has all these things in place to collect sales tax from all the different states. But a small business, I mean, even if you sold stuff online, right? If I was making water bottles here in Oklahoma and I was shipping them all over the country, am I supposed to go register in every state and collect that state's sales tax and send them that? I mean, I'm supposed to. The states would love you to do that, but how do you do that? As a small business, if you don't have that infrastructure, it would be an absolute nightmare. So that's what they're trying to solve that. You know what would solve it? National sales tax. But that's a whole nother issue. So we're not going to get into that. So
oh my goodness. Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, that's way too exciting. I don't want to.
What was your thought on a flat tax? No, I'm just kidding.
That's what I'm talking about. National sales tax for sure.
Who did you vote for? No, just playing. All right, another question from one of our mastermind students. What is the best way to take profit distributions as an S-corp to avoid paying more taxes? We have a large sum sitting in our account that we want to take out for a trip, but don't want to pay huge taxes.
Oh, Lord. See, this is why you need people like me, because I'm going to blow your mind right here. Your taxes are not based on the money that's sitting in your bank account. So all you have to do is write yourself a check, because that money that you've made, that you've earned, that's sitting in your business bank account, you're going to get taxed on the income of the business, whether you take it out as a distribution or not. Your distributions actually have no bearing, for the most part, on your taxable income. It's not taxable income because that's just taking out profit. It's the distribution of profit. And so it's not going to get taxed twice. You're already being taxed on the profit of the business. So take the money out, go have your trip for sure, and have fun doing it.
Your mind is blown.
Right, there you go.
That is a question. I was talking to my sister-in-law who owns a small business, and she's been very concerned about that idea right there about, okay, my business is making money and I want to save for this and but I have all this money just sitting here, but I don't want to get transfer it into another account and then get taxed on that as well. So you're saying that the taxing happens when it comes into if you're an S-corp, it comes into the S-corp. And so that's when it gets taxed. And now you can do what you want with it and you're not going to get taxed again.
Yeah, it's not going to get double taxed. It's a beautiful thing, right? So, and your taxes, when we do your taxes, it's not based on what's in the bank account. So your bank account balance has nothing to do with how much taxes you're paying. So I had a client call. It's funny because I literally had a client call. It was a couple of weeks ago, asking the same thing. They just had their air conditioning or something, because I guess it was late summer. Their air conditioning had gone out. They live in Arizona. It was super flipping hot, and they had to replace it, but they didn't have any money. But they had money in their business, and if they could just get that money out of their business, that would be great. But they didn't want to screw themselves on taxes. And I'm like, you can just write yourself a check. You've already made the money. And they were like, are you serious? And that day they went and got their air conditioning fixed, and they were so happy. So it pays to have somebody that knows what they're talking about. And then you don't have to have those worries, right? There's something to be said for peace of mind. I know people hate that term, but there's a thing to be said for peace of mind. So
I like peace of mind.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's the same person that asked this next question, but I'm guessing, he asked if there's anything wrong for paying for personal things out of your business accounts if you have a surplus. I know they wouldn't be write-offs, but if I could avoid paying the tax on them, why not just write a check out of my business? But based on the last question, all he needs to do is give himself a distribution, and then he can buy, and there is no tax. It's the same thing as the last one.
Yeah, it's. You always want to keep stuff separate, right? Business and personal, you want to keep them separate. Now, like sometimes I'll have business owners that, accidentally spend $500 on their business credit card or whatever, right? And they tell me about it. So I'll just code that to distribution. So it's not an expense, but it's a distribution, and it's not taxable either. But yeah, you're right. You're just essentially taking out the money and putting it into your personal account, and then you're spending it from your personal account. There's no taxes to be had on that. The taxes have already been paid on all that money. So there's nothing to be. So you can pay for stuff out of your personal account. I just wouldn't recommend it. It's not going to come off as an expense. So
it just gets kind of hairy. Yeah. It's just annoying if you're doing all of it and then trying to separate it. It's like mixing two different colors of sand together and trying to spread them out again at the end of the year. It seems like just annoying.
Yeah, and
you could do it, but
you can do it. And I think the other thing too is, I'm no lawyer, so this is no legal advice, but if you're running a business and saying that it's run through a business, and then somebody comes and tries to sue you and the business personally, whatever, and you're running personal stuff through your business, you might open yourself up to your personal life if you're running personal stuff through there.
That's legal advice from Jeremy with Core, officially stamped.
We're cutting that for sure. Yeah, but no, it's the same thing. There's no taxes to be had on any of that anyway.
Okay, that's really good. That's a really good thing to note, because I've always been kind of confused about that, and I'm sure that a lot of people that are in the boat with the S-corp, I don't want to pay more taxes. No one wants to pay more taxes, but just knowing that, giving yourself a distribution, that's nice.
Totally tax-free.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how
John?
it works. No,
John,
I always would say this to Jeremy, especially. I think I even said it yesterday, because my mind is just. It's like, is it okay if I pay myself a distribution? That he's like, you're not paying yourself. It's just distribution. It's just distributing.
You're just giving yourself profit.
Distributing profit. And you also, I want to throw this out there too, is when you have an S-corp specifically, you do have to pay yourself a salary, and it is a reasonable salary, whatever that means. So you get to determine that with your tax pro, what a reasonable salary is. So, if your business is making $500,000 a year and your salary is $20,000 and your distributions are $400,000, you're probably going to throw up some red flags to the IRS or your government. So making sure you are getting taxed. That's one of the benefits of having an S-corp is, yes, you're giving yourself a salary and you're getting taxed on that. You're paying both sides of your taxes, but then on the distributions, you're only paying for the so you're saving a big, it's a huge way to save and a legal way to save, and why it's set up that way.
Yes.
I think I said that right.
Mostly right. Yes.
Mostly right.
As right as it needed to be, for sure. I like it.
Respect.
As right as
All
a non-tax professional can say it.
That's right. Yes, exactly. As
said
right as
like
a podcaster can say it.
A student of your wisdom. You are Mr. Miyagi.
Oh, another question we got. Is a company car better than a personal car for writing off mileage?
I don't know exactly what they mean, except
Okay.
that if they're asking, I mean, mileage is mileage.
Okay.
So, whether it's a company vehicle, whether it's a personal vehicle writing off mileage, the mileage deduction is exactly the same for both. But if you have a company vehicle that's in the company or whatever, then you can either take mileage or you can take actual expenses. So that's another thing to work out with your tax professional, which one's more beneficial, which one's better for you tax wise. If you drive a whole lot of miles, the actual expenses might not be as much as your mileage, right? Because if it's a car that you're using for business and personal, and maybe it's 50-50 or something, but you're using it for a lot of miles in business, then it might be more beneficial to take mileage. But that's something you would have to work out for your particular tax situation. But it doesn't matter as far as the car goes. Business miles are business miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nick, there was one more question about cars, which I thought was kind of fun that I want to ask. And I just am trying to picture what this person would do with this question. But here's the question. Can I vehicle wrap my personal car and write off all mileage? I just am trying to picture what I would do with wrapping my car. Like,
Can I put a massive How to Film Weddings logo on my personal car?
Did you write this question, Nick?
No, I didn't. But
I feel like he might have, but whatever. Well,
and fine. Then can I write off everywhere I drive?
I mean, essentially, you're making your car a billboard, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me more.
I haven't looked up. Honestly, you can write off the full value of a car if it's used 100% for business. So, I mean, if you're using it 100% for business, you get to write off the whole thing. So it's not a matter of writing off the mileage. Again, it would be like the mileage rate doesn't change, right? So if you're using it for mileage, or you're taking the mileage deduction, I mean, I guess some of those miles, like you driving to and from dinner, I don't necessarily that would be considered business just because you have
marketing.
A wrap on your car.
I don't know.
But you're not in the business. Well, I guess you're kind of in the business of marketing, but I mean, you'd have to give it the tax professional, and I'd have to do some research on how they actually, because I see people doing that crap all the time, but I can't imagine that it would be overly advantageous to make that happen. Not advantageous enough to drive around an annoying looking car. But
hey, bro, you're starting to offend whoever asked that question.
No.
What if it was just Nick? I got a wrap somehow of Nick on my car. Like
my
he was
face.
sitting in the window and we wrapped it to where it looked like we were recording a podcast all the time we were driving. I mean, that's gotta.
I mean, at some point you'd also have to show that that's like legit marketing, like that actually brings people to your podcast. And I don't know that people would come to your podcast or have you shoot their wedding if you were that guy. Or maybe they would because they really wanted that guy. I don't know.
It reminds me of the episode of The Office where they're crunching their numbers with the tax professional. And, can you crunch the numbers one more time? It's a system. I can't. Okay,
just crunch them.
It also reminds me of when Michael calls David Wallace and asks if they hire Cirque du Soleil for his 15-year anniversary party, would that help with year-end tax stuff? Be funny. Before we sign off, I just have to know: are there any fun, things that people have tried to write off in your history doing what you do that stand out? Like, what's the most fun thing people get to write off, or something funny that they didn't get to that you had to smack them in the face and say, stop trying to write that off?
Oh man, that's good. That's really hard to,
He lives a boring life.
I know. I obviously no. That's very just on the spot. I don't, because I get asked crazy questions all the time, and we make fun of people all the time, and I can't think of not either one of
How
you.
your tax
Obviously,
professionals really feel about you.
Yeah, we
make
actually make fun of other clients, just not you guys.
Okay.
No, people ask ridiculous things all the time. I can't think.
Has anyone tried to write off a pet?
I mean, people always ask about writing off pets or homes or just about anything you can think of. People have tried to or at least asked about writing off. Like, what do you mean I can't write that off? Well, it doesn't have anything to do with business. And they're like, well, but if I buy it with the business account, that's one thing that I had somebody tell me one time. Well, but if I write an LLC check for that makes it a business expense, right? And I'm like, no, that doesn't make it a business expense. Like when the IRS comes in and audits you, they don't go, well, that was written through the business. Oh, it was written through the business bank account. Oh, then we don't have to ask any questions. It's all business for sure, right? Like that's not.
You guys, that's why George Bluth on Arrested Development went to jail. Is because he was buying personal stuff with his business money.
There's always money in the banana stand.
Always money in the banana stand.
Yes. Nick, anything else you want to add before we tell Jeremy goodbye and ask him where people can find him? And he's going to say www again.
No, I'm not. Not this time.
He's going to do it.
No, I don't have anything. I really, this is one of those things that I know for most people, it's like, taxes, that kind of thing. But it's really, Jeremy would probably be like, yeah, I get that. But it's an important thing for your business, for the future, for planning. And like I said, in having a tax professional, they were able to save us, $20,000 in a year, swing just by filing for that election, which I would have had no clue. Had a meeting earlier this year and Jeremy told me what my tax projections were that I would owe so that I could start saving and getting that stuff figured out. If I would have, in March or at April on tax days, you owe, tens of thousands of dollars, have fun. Like that's a big, kick in the pants. And so having that tax professional, having someone on your side is definitely worth it. Whether you hire Core or someone else or someone that can help you with this, we highly recommend doing that for your business. So Jeremy, in saying that, where can people find you and hire you to help them with their business?
They can go to our website at coregroupus.com. I think there's a button on there that says book a discovery call. And you can get with somebody and we kind of go through what you got going on and see how we can help for sure.
I love it. He is the coolest tax guy I've ever met. I know you say you're not a tax guy, but you're in the company. Core is very relatable when it comes to stuff like that. If you don't have somebody, check them out. If they're not a good fit, they'll point you in the direction of somebody who might be. But please, for the love of all things good, do not try to do these things on your own. If we can give you any advice heading into the new year, is to plan the stuff ahead and don't be looking at the scoreboard wishing that you could change the outcome of the game after it's already over. So Jeremy, thank you so much for being on here. We really appreciate it. And I guess we'll just see you next time.
You got it, man. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
See ya.
All right, that was our interview with Jeremy from Core Financial. What a good dude. The coolest tax guy we know. If you haven't already, head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/store. Be sure to check out all the good things we have going on over there. We hope you have a great week, and until next time, we will see you.
See ya.
Are you looking for a better way to deliver your wedding films to your couples? Look no further. Our friends over at Webflow provide the most flexible video delivery solution on the market. Webflow is pay per project with no large upfront cost or commitment, and you can cancel anytime. Not only that, Webflow offers a premium viewing experience for your couples, accessible on mobile, tablet, desktop, as well as their very own suite of TV apps. Each project comes with 10 years hosting and an experience for your clients that will blow them away. Stop delivering your films the old-fashioned way and give your couples something to rave about. Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/Webflow to check out Webflow today.